I'm David Mulgrew. So, slight content warning for Hayden and Leroy. There were 2 AIs used in the creation of that image. So this is VR as an exercise tool for joint mobility interventions. So a little bit of background. I've got a background in software engineering. I came to university for a career change and to get into research. I've got several AI and game technology related research projects. That's usually my focus. I have, probably most relevant here, a quite history of joint issues for various different reasons, and I started by trialing VR for my own benefit. So, a little bit about the project. So, joint mobility is really vital for physical health. It can affect just your ability to engage with anything. It can affect pain levels. It affects your ability to just take part in everyday life. And as you get older, maybe suffer injuries or you might have other issues, it has a tendency to go downhill. So gamification, in this case, can make this process much more engaging. Making something fun is always a good way to get people to engage. It wasn't the direct focus of this, but it's definitely important to note. So some games have very consistent pacing and very highly varied motions. Other games have almost no consistent pacing, it varies quite a lot, and don't have a variety of motions at all. So to give an example, one game might have you standing in a field just looking around the scenery, or solving a puzzle, like a physical puzzle in the real world. Another game might have you constantly kickboxing with a character for several minutes at a time. So the variety of activity and the amount of movement you get, it can vary a lot. So I focused on Beat Saber for this one because it has such a wide range of movements, and it has that very consistent output as you go through it. So just, if you'll play on here, just for those that are not too familiar, we'll mute that because I want to focus on the movement. So the game itself, you have these, as the music plays, you have to slice a note. You see there's a white arrow on these blocks that are coming towards you. This is one of the medium difficulties, so if it's a bit fast, don't worry. But essentially you chain together like movements. And the key for this game is chaining together those movements is what's important, because as you go from one to another, you go through quite a wide range of different motions. So current research at the moment is focused on like either rehab or cardio fitness. So I wanted to target joint mobility specifically. So and because I'd already sort of looked at this for my own benefit, I wanted to introduce like a conceptual model to be like, okay, what about the game that particular game gave me benefit that I could then put into a framework that would apply to other games, or I could generalize across other fields maybe, someday maybe. So the movement diversity is the first one, the fact that there's such a wide range of movements and such a wide range of flexibility. So it's also, there's user-tailored intensity with Beat Saber. So in fact, it won't let you do something that you're not good enough to unless you mess with the advanced settings. If you are not good, you don't have the skill level or the physical ability to keep up, it will kick you out of the level and say try a lower difficulty setting. So you can't overexert yourself with that. Technically you can if you go into the advanced setting, but most users are not going to go into that. So it's very consistent. You generally will, most levels last 3 to 5 minutes. There are exceptions that go outside that, but most of that 3 to 5 minutes. It's a relatively consistent pace all the way through. Again, it's music, so sometimes that can vary a bit, but it's relatively consistent. And then you get a little bit of break while you select the next track, which for most users, unless they need the break, will be about 10 seconds. And it's a very accessible platform from both the fact that the game is very simple to pick up. If you've never played this sort of thing before, it's a very simple premise and you can pick it up very quickly, but it's also relatively affordable. So you can get this in front of quite a lot of people. So the actual measurement, I went through a 5-week study. I've not done this on people beyond myself yet. That's future stuff. But it uses a selection of validated flexibility measurements and some sort of measurements of how intense you're working on heart rate, just to be able to track intensity versus the outcome on joint mobility. So there's subjective measures in here as well, so how much pain you're in, how sore are you afterwards. And I do want to do this again with a control condition, because the act of measuring joint flexibility is a joint exercise in itself. So you need to isolate for how the measuring itself could have an impact. So the preliminary one that I did on myself, I did 12 weeks, conducted as part of like my own medical interventions. I went through a couple of games, but I stuck with Beat Saber just because it was the most consistent, and it was the most, it allowed me scope to start easy and build up in a very consistent way as my own ability, both my skill at the game and my physical condition improved. So started with weekly sessions, 45 minutes apiece, tracked lots of different flexibility points, pain, heart rate, well-being, both before and after, and 24-hour post-session. One of the key things and why that sort of inspired me to do this project in the first place is because of my joint conditions. Even with low impact stuff like cycling, I would usually be in a lot of pain for several days afterwards. With this, the next day I had no pain at all. So my recovery time was cut dramatically, to the point where I stopped doing this as much because I could do more things. But the flexibility it's a gradual improvement over the duration of several sessions. So, and just general well-being can be improved with this. Like, again, personally, I've been through lots of different interventions with the medical team. There's no downside to this, like there are with drugs or things that take a massive time investment. It's literally go play a game for 45 minutes. So, I recorded quite a lot of metrics when I first did it. I highlighted these three because they're the ones that align very, very closely with the validated ones I've done in the framework I've set down. So lower numbers on this are better. This is sit and reach test. A lot of you will have done that at school, where you sit and sort of reach out past your toes. The other one is back scratch test. You sort of left the arm over, right arm, how far can you overlap your fingers behind your back, essentially. So again, over 12 weeks, quite a significant improvement, and from most of this I couldn't get near on any of the measurements, and again, quite a significant improvement. So VR's ability to engage is it's the fact that it makes you want to play it regardless of the activity is quite, I think, quite a big factor here. Let's say it wasn't the focus, but it's worth noting most people would rather play a game than go to the gym, right? So it combines lots of varied movement, immediate feedback, and an immersive environment. So it promotes flexible usage and long-term participation. So the proposed intervention could also, it can work in a physiotherapy and in a clinical setting. Like it's exactly where it started for me. But it's also very low cost. But it's low impact and you can do it at home. So it's very easy to get it in the hands of a lot of people. So the current findings I've got there illustrative. I started it, the first data set I captured was just studying myself. It was never intended to be a study. It inspired me to look into it more because of how successful it was, and that's kind of the direction I want to go with this. So overall, I do think it shows quite a lot of potential to support joint health and physical health in general, and it's enjoyable. So I want to give a special thanks to Andy Hooton, who gave me a lot of his time to discuss the validated joint measurements and the safety aspect of doing exercises, and Callum Streets and Ash Windsor, who both helped with some preliminary explorations before I did this project. So beyond that, thank you for listening. Any questions?
Thanks very much. So, just Sharon, isn't it?
Sharon.
Oh, Sharon, yes.
Okay. That's really interesting that you found that. And I was wondering, beyond joint, well, I've got two questions actually. First one is that you're using yourself in this study and you've got joint problems.
Yep.
How do I say this? Will you only go on then in your future research to use only people with joint problems and no other problems, so you get an absolute unbiased?
So the framework I wrote out for this is not focusing on clinical populations. It's general population, so it would be essentially maybe equivalent to if you do a study on how yoga helps joints or how Pilates helps joints, just in general. I would like to again do another one after that, now focusing on people with actual joint issues. Let's focus on that too. So I'd like to do both, but this one essentially, when I'm defining how this should be done with properly, is we start with the general population and how that affects joints in general before we go with the extra complexity and ethical issues of people with extra issues.
Which leads me on to the second part, is that do you envisage this study going into like an osteoporosis room where you can actually measure their bone health as well to see if that improves?
Bone health is quite an interesting one actually. I actually hadn't thought of bone health, but that's probably worth investigating along with this at some point. I'd mostly sort of been focusing on different types of, like for when I go later down the line to the joint health ones, is how it affects both joint pain and muscular pain in lots and lots of different places. But bone health is a good one, so maybe I'll consider that in the future. Thank you.
That's great. I've got a question at the front.
So I was thinking as like the game itself, Beat Saber tends to like focus more on like arm games.
Yep.
Is there any possible games that you may have found that could have something to do with maybe leg joint pain?
So interestingly, when I first did this on myself, I only put the sit and reach test in because it was an easy one to do. I didn't even think about it at the first time that it might affect other joints. There are two things on the list of tests here. There's the sit and reach and the groin flexibility test are both leg focused. And the reason I put those in is because I had such success with the sit and reach test. I was like, well, it seems to be affecting joints outside of the arms, which are the ones that are activated the most. And the reason I think that is when you start to get onto the higher speeds, because you're changing direction a lot, you are actually sort of, because you're swaying very rapidly back and forth to change direction, you are actually including all those other joints as well. And again, using my own case, it's the waist down that my joints are worse, and they were improved quite dramatically after I ran through this myself. So I think I assumed it wouldn't include legs, and it did, and it was a big part of why I decided to look at this more.
Yes, following on from that, in the Beat Saber game, did you include walls and the fact that you have to move, or is it simply, did you do it stationary the whole time and arms only?
In this, I would probably allow people to turn them on and off. In my own case, I turn them off because I have a tendency, if I do a side step, that my knee will go and I'll end up on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I have trouble squatting, so for those that haven't played the game, there is a visual depiction of a wall that comes down, you have to sidestep it, or there's a visual depiction of like a beam that you have to duck underneath. You can turn those off in the settings. In my case, I turn them off. With this, I would, because it's general population, I'd leave them enabled, because more motion, more things to test. But you can do either way.
I suppose a question for myself. Have you thought about the difference between VR and say using the Xbox Connect? Because I remember they used to have the sort of like camera sensor, and of course you'd be expected to.
Do you
think there would be a difference in?
Yes, interestingly, I did think about that, because one of the analogies is like, I think a lot of people in here will use the Wii or the Xbox Connect, a lot of other things that get you moving. I think the biggest thing with the Connect that is different with this is the amount of space you need for Connect. You can do this sitting down, and I did do it sitting down at one point when I was having a particularly bad week. I did this sitting down, and as long as you've got enough room to move your arms, you have enough room to do this. So that's one aspect. Again, I don't know the entire library of Connect games, but I don't know any that were equally as consistent as the ones I picked here. I'm sure there are some, but a lot of the same things would probably apply if we used Connect instead. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Oh, yeah, sure.
Has this been assessed before with virtual reality, or is this like a novel idea?
So I couldn't find anything that targeted joints specifically. I found some articles that look at other aspects of health, so they're either using VR in rehabilitation in clinical settings, or they're focusing on either general health or cardiovascular health, and we'll maybe have a little bit of a mention of joint health, but I couldn't find anything that has anywhere near this much focus on joint health, if at all.
Interesting. So when can we get it on prescription?
Knowing where the NHS works, about 20 years if I get it out next week.
But no, that's wonderful. I think we're just question time, so I think we're
Okay.
good.
Thank you.